Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a diet that's, well, it's definitely generating a lot of buzz. The carnivore diet. Simply put, it means eating only animal products. And it's getting attention, with some people reporting benefits, especially for inflammatory conditions.
That's right.
So our goal in this deep dive is to really understand what this diet involves, to dissect the science around it, looking at the good and the bad, and explore if maybe, just maybe, certain people might benefit based on the actual science.
Absolutely. And we've gathered quite a range of sources. We'll be looking at a detailed case study on nutrient adequacy, a big umbrella review on red and processed meat consumption.
That sounds important.
It is. Also, a specific review asking if a carnivore diet can provide all essential nutrients. And finally, a systematic review comparing nutrient status in plant-based eaters versus meat eaters. So a pretty thorough look.
Great. Let's start with the basics then. For anyone who isn't familiar, what exactly is the carnivore diet? It sounds simple, but I bet there's more to it.
You're right. There are nuances. Fundamentally, it's an elimination diet. Only animal-derived foods. Meat, poultry, fish, eggs.
Okay.
And sometimes dairy for some people. Macronutrient-wise, it's typically very high in fat. Think 60 to 80% of energy.
Wow, that high.
Yeah. And protein is around 20 to 40%. Carbs, extremely low, usually under 5% of total energy.
So it's definitely not just a standard high-protein diet then, with that much fat. And I know people do it differently, right?
Yeah.
It's not just steak 3 times a day.
No, definitely not. While ruminant meats, beef, lamb, that sort of thing, and their fats are often the base, many people include pork, chicken, fish too. And organ meats like liver are often encouraged for nutrients.
Makes sense. Nutrient density.
Exactly.
Yep.
Plus eggs, bone marrow, bone broth. And some variations even allow fermented dairy like kefir.
And there's this idea of eating whole foods, isn't there? It's not supposed to be about processed stuff.
Generally, yes. The principle for most followers is minimal processing. Focus on whole cuts of meat, organs, eggs, foods in their more natural state.
Okay, got it. So we know what it is. Now, the big question. What does the science actually say? That case study analyzing nutrient content, what did it find?
Well, it painted a somewhat mixed picture, actually. The researchers looked at different carnivore meal plans.
Right.
And they found these plans did meet the recommended daily intakes, the NRVs, for quite a few nutrients. Things like riboflavin, niacin, B6, B12, zinc, selenium, vitamin A, phosphorus.
That's a decent list.
It is. And interestingly, sodium often exceeded the recommendations.
Okay. But I'm guessing there were gaps, shortfalls.
There were. The study consistently found levels below the recommended amounts for thiamine, magnesium, calcium, and vitamin C.
Vitamin C, okay. That's a big one.
Yeah. And in some plans, they also flagged potential issues with iron, folate, iodine, and potassium. And then there's fiber.
Which would be
essentially zero because, well, no plants. That lack of plant compounds is a direct result of cutting out that whole food group.
right. Makes sense. 0 plants, 0 fiber. So what was the study's bottom line?
The researchers concluded that, look, while the diet might offer benefits for some chronic conditions, they mentioned the anecdotal reports on inflammation, the very real potential for micronutrient issues is a major concern.
So proceed with caution.
Definitely. They stressed needing personalized guidance, maybe supplementation, especially long-term.
That vitamin C thing is interesting. I've heard carnivore folks argue they don't need as much. Didn't one of our reviews touch on that? The sort of meat prevents scurvy idea?
It did. It's a bit of a puzzle. Meat isn't a great vitamin C source, yet historically, it seemed to prevent scurvy.
No.
Well, one theory involves carnitine. Meat is packed with it, and our bodies use vitamin C to make carnitine. So the thinking goes, if you eat lots of carnitine, maybe you need less vitamin C for that particular job, a sparing effect, potentially.
Right. Potential sparing effect. But the case study still found low levels.
Exactly. That's the crucial point. It's an intriguing theory, but the actual analysis showed vitamin C intake falling short. So relying just on meat for vitamin C seems risky based on this data.
Okay. What about calcium? Another one flagged as potentially low. What's the deal with calcium and bone health on this diet?
Well, the case study showed that if dairy was included, calcium needs were often met.
Ah, so dairy makes a difference.
It does. But for dairy-free versions, calcium could definitely be inadequate. And historically, some cultures eating mostly animal foods did consume dairy, like Mongolians, or even small edible bones like the Inuit. sources of calcium.
So the modern dairy-free approach might miss out. And wasn't there some debate about high protein intake affecting calcium?
Yeah, that's an older idea. The theory was high protein increases acid load, making you excrete more calcium, potentially harming bones.
All right.
But more recent research suggests the body might compensate by absorbing more calcium too. So the net effect on bone health isn't quite clear-cut. It's still being researched.
Got it. Okay, let's talk fiber. Zero fiber on a strict carnivore diet. Proponents say it's non-essential. What's the mainstream view?
The overwhelming consensus is that fiber is, well, really beneficial, especially for gut health. It feeds our gut microbes.
The microbiome.
Right. And those microbes produce short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate. Super important for keeping the gut lining healthy, reducing inflammation.
So taking fiber out completely could mess with that.
That's the main concern, yes. A major criticism. But there is a counter-argument from the carnivore side.
Which is?
They point to beta-hydroxybutyrate, BHB. It's a ketone body produced when you eat very few carbs, like on this diet.
And BHB does.
Interestingly, BHB also seems to have protective roles, reducing inflammation, supporting cell health somewhat similar to butyrate. And there's even some early research suggesting the gut microbes on keto diets might start producing more folate.
Huh. So the body might adapt in some ways. Fascinating. Okay, let's shift to the risks and red flags now. That big umbrella review on meat consumption, what were the key takeaways there?
Yeah, that review synthesized a ton of studies. It found that higher intake of total meat was linked to increased risk of colorectal cancer, colon cancer, stroke, and dying from any cause.
Okay, those are serious.
They also found a linear link, meaning more meat, more risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, several other cancers, and cardiovascular death.
Wow. What about red meat specifically? Did they separate that out?
They did. For higher red meat intake, the review suggested a possible increased risk for several cancers, like colorectal adenoma, lung, ovarian, prostate, kidney, stomach, plus coronary heart disease and stroke.
Possible association.
Right. The evidence linking red meat to increased risk of breast cancer, cardiovascular death, and type 2 diabetes was considered more limited. For some other conditions, there wasn't enough evidence or no link was found.
And processed meat usually gets a worse rap, doesn't it?
Generally, yes, and the review reflected that. A strong link between higher processed meat intake and increased risk of colorectal adenoma, lung cancer, coronary heart disease, and stroke.
Strong link there.
And limited evidence suggesting increased risk for breast cancer, overall mortality, cardiovascular mortality, and type 2 diabetes with processed meat.
Did they look at how much meat might be linked to these risks, like a dose response?
Yes, they did. That analysis suggested that for every extra 100 grams of red meat per day, that's about 3.5 ounces, there was a significant increase in the risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and stroke.
Okay. And for processed?
For processed meat, every extra 50 grams per day, maybe like one hot dog or a couple slices of bacon, was linked to a significantly higher risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, death from any cause, and even heart failure.
Those quantities really put it into perspective. But the review did mention limitations in the evidence quality, right?
It did. They noted things like heterogeneity, results varying between studies, and geographical differences, which suggests, other factors are likely involved. Overall diet quality, cooking methods, lifestyle. It's complex.
Definitely not simple cause and effect. Okay, so how does this all stack up against, say, plant-based diets? What did that comparative review find?
That review pointed out that, yes, fully plant-based diets can sometimes be low in certain nutrients. B12 is the classic one. But also, potentially, vitamin D, EPA, omega-3s, calcium, iron, zinc, and iodine. But interestingly, it also found that general meat eaters often also don't get enough vitamin D and calcium, so it's not exclusive to plant-based.
Good point.
And conversely, plant-based diets usually come out higher in things like polyunsaturated fats, ALA omega-3, fiber, folate, vitamin E, and magnesium. So, both approaches have potential pitfalls needing attention.
It really sounds like careful planning is key, no matter the overall approach. Okay, considering everything, the anecdotal benefits, the nutrient gaps, the risks from the big meat reviews, who might actually benefit from trying a carnivore diet, if anyone?
It's tricky. The case study did note those anecdotal reports for chronic conditions, especially inflammatory ones.
Right, the anecdotes.
And that other review mentioned a survey where people felt they had better results on carnivore compared to just low carb.
So some self-reported positives exist.
They do, but, and this is a big but, we have to be really cautious, given the clear potential for nutrient deficiencies from the case study and the concerning associations with high meat intake from the umbrella review.
It's not something to jump into lightly.
Oh, absolutely not. If someone is considering it for specific health reasons, they really need personalized expert guidance. They need to understand the risks, the potential need for supplements. It requires very careful management.
So definitely no blanket recommendation. More like, be aware of the potential downsides and the gaps in our current scientific knowledge.
Exactly. The long-term effects just aren't well understood. While the anecdotes are interesting, the existing evidence on high meat intake does raise serious questions.
This has been incredibly insightful. Let's try and sum up the key takeaways then.
Okay, so the carnivore diet, super restrictive, only animal products. It's gained attention. Some people report benefits, especially anecdotally, for inflammation. But the science shows, while it might cover some nutrient bases, it's very likely to fall short on others. Vitamin C, magnesium, calcium, potentially others, and definitely fiber.
Big gaps, potentially.
Big gaps. And then you have the wider research, that umbrella review, linking high intakes of red and especially processed meat, the staples of this diet, to increased risks of some serious chronic diseases.
So it's really weighing those, often anecdotal, potential upsides against very real nutritional risks and concerning long-term associations found in broader population studies.
Precisely. It just highlights how crucial it is to look at all the evidence, not just the stories, and underscores the need for personalized advice before making such a drastic dietary shift. It's not a casual change.
Definitely not. Okay, on that note, here's a final thought for everyone listening. Given this complex dance between nutrients, our metabolism, and the varying strength of evidence we have, how can future research get better at figuring out truly optimal, sustainable ways of eating for each individual's long-term health? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.